This is General Lafayette. And in the background, you see a brother in the back. That was a Moor. Now that Moor is the one who, now in these motifs you're going to see the Moor in the background who looks like he's a servant or something. He is in reality the teacher. And the European up front is in reality the student. I'm going to show you another picture. Here's a picture of Peter the Great, and in the background, you see another Moor, like in the back. It's almost like he's way in the background hiding. And here's another Moor, and this is supposed to be Peter the Great. And here's one more. And I have many of these, but this is just, I just brought 3 today. And here's a picture of George Washington, and in back of him, you see who? Prince Whipple with a turban on and a feather, just like Noble Drew Ali. Now I know they said the Moors practiced reincarnation, and they said that it was George Washington who took down the Moorish flag, which was the so-called proverbial chopping down of the cherry tree, the Moorish red flag. And it says that it was stashed into a warehouse, a storage room here in Philadelphia. And it was said that Noble Drew Ali came to Woodrow Wilson, Coolidge, and reclaimed our flag and our nationality, which was hidden away. And here you see somebody that looked almost like Noble Drew Ali with a turban with a feather on in the background. That's a person known as Prince Whipple. These are the Moors who was behind the scenes secretly educating the European. Now, America's Constitution, as a matter of fact, the whole formation of America was based on our federal government that we had set up over here, one of which was called the Iroquois Confederacy. And in this book, The America's Secret Destiny, by Hieronymus, he discusses in here how Benjamin Franklin got their whole thing about this federal government from us. It says, here's what Caldwaller, a contemporary of Benjamin Franklin, said about the Iroquois. The Indians have outdone the Romans. They have a social and political system so old that the immigrant Europeans knew nothing of its origin. A federal union of 5 and later 6 Indian nations that have put into practice concepts of popular participation and natural rights that the European savants had thus far only theorized. In other words, we was putting into action what they was just learning in theory. And it says the Iroquois system expressed through its constitution, which was called the Great Law of Peace, rested on assumptions foreign to monarchies of Europe. It regarded leaders as servants of the people rather than their masters, and made provision for their leaders, impeachment for errant behavior. The Iroquois law and custom upheld freedom of expression in political and religious matters, and it forbade the unauthorized entry of homes. It provided for political participation by women and relatively equitable distribution of wealth. And it goes on to mention how in Arthur C. Parker's account of the Iroquois' Great Law of Peace, he notes, here then we find the right of popular nomination, the right of recall, and women's suffrage, or the right to vote, flourishing in old America of the so-called red man, and centuries before it became the popular clamor of the new America of the white invader. And it goes on to express how basically it was said to them, and it mentions here how we were so adept in political situations and diplomacy. It says, let me pronounce his name right, Canas Satego was praised for his dignity and forcefulness of speech and his uncanny understanding of the whites. This is a Moorish representative. It says, at the 1744 Treaty Council, Canas Satego reportedly carried off all honors of oratory, logical argument, and adroit negotiation, according to Witham Marsh, who observed the Treaty Council. Marsh wrote afterwards that ye Indians seem superior to ye commissioners in point of sense and argument. Then it says, now check this out. It says, the colonists should, this is This is Franklin. This is Benjamin Franklin speaking right now. He says the colonists should accept the Iroquois' advice to form a union in common defense under a common federal government. This suggestion was coming to us. It said it would be a very strange thing if 6 nations of ignorant savages, this is what he's saying, should be capable of forming a scheme for such a union and be able to execute it in such a manner as it has subsisted for ages and appears indissoluble, and yet like a union should be impractical for 10 or a dozen English colonies. So the whole thing for them to come together and form the Confederacy, Continental Congress, came from us, and we are the underlying force behind that. Now, like I said, Benjamin Banneker played a very key role, and like I said, they keep it hidden. We was told that he set up the whole federal government, everything for them. Now, in this book, it mentions some secret man. In this book called The Secret Destiny of America by Manly P. Hall, he mentions, this chapter is called The Unknown Who Swayed the Signers of the Declaration of Independence. And it says, faced with the death penalty for high treason, this is during the signing of the Declaration of Independence, it says courageous men debated long before they picked up the quill pen to sign the parchment that declared the independence of the colonies from the mother country. For many hours they debated in the State House at Philadelphia with the lower chamber doors locked and a guard posted. When suddenly a voice rang from the balcony, a burst of eloquence to the keynote. In other words, they had the bottom downstairs door locked, guarded and everything. All of a sudden a man arises up and he tells them to sign that document. And then he goes through a whole speech about why they should sign the document, right? When he finished, all of them bum rushed the table to sign the document, this Declaration of Independence. When they turned around, the man was gone. That man, we believe, was Bembe Emmanuel Moali. He also shows up in another part, dealing with the flag, and the founding of the flag. And they said that this flag, here you go, this chapter is called The Unknown Man Who Designed Our Flag. Now, who's all these unknown people working behind the scenes? The unknown man who designed the flag. They talk about Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and a couple others going to, I believe it's George Washington's house, to come up with an idea for their flag, the American banner. And they said at George Washington's house there was a strange man there called the Professor. Some strange man called the Professor. That's all they refer to him as, is the Professor. This man was vegetarian, and he was a master astrologer. Now, when you study Benjamin Banneker or Ben Bay, you will find out he was a master astrologer. And he describes here a prophecy with regards to America. And his idea for the flag, they eventually adopted. And it said, now it says, after a preamble, the professor made the following extraordinary remarks. And he goes into this whole thing about the sun of our political air, like the sun in the heavens, is very low on the horizon, just now approaching the winter solstice, which it will reach very soon. But as the sun rises from its grave in Capricorn, the sign of Capricorn, mounts towards resurrection in Aries, and passes onward and upward towards glorious culmination in Cancer, July, so will our political sunrise and continue to increase. He was laying out an astrological prophecy of how America will come about into being. This is Ben Bay again. Now, what has happened? Basically, when the Moors were defeated in this hemisphere, the slave labels of Negro, African, colored, Indian, and West Indian was placed on us, which meant property with no rights, a white person's bound to respect. And the Europeans in their states' rights maintain this through states' rights. They say that we are sovereign and we have the right to our property, and these Negroes are our property, and you, the federal government, you can't step in freedom. And that's what and eventually they went to war. The Civil War was dealing with this whole issue. And what happened, the Civil War began when the southern states, the Confederate states whose system was based on slave labor, they seceded, they withdrew from the Union, the Federal Union. And then the North went to war with them to bring them back into the Union. Because the North had an idea for this New World Order. They were dealing with this New World Order plan, and they was dealing with a more industrialized economy. Lincoln comes with the so-called Emancipation Proclamation. Now, what the so-called Emancipation Proclamation did was, since we still didn't realize who we were as Moors and claim our Moorish nationality, it set up what we call a 14th Amendment citizenship. And if you look in the Constitution on the 14th Amendment, first of all, in the 13th Amendment, they'll say that's what freed you from slavery, right? But have you read the 13th Amendment carefully? In the 13th Amendment, it states, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime. In other words, this didn't free you from slavery. This gave them the right to enslave you if you're convicted of a crime. It says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted shall exist in the United States. This is why they could have you working in the prisons, making plates or whatever they have you doing in these factories, and then pay you nothing or close to nothing. It's a form of slave labor. And they're in the process of now even heavily industrializing the prisons even more so and turn them over into private hands. Because the prisons, what happened is that the prisons had become the new factories. When they was closing down these factories in all the European neighborhoods and they was losing their jobs, now the prisons have replaced them and given them jobs. And guess who's the raw materials? We are. So-called black, especially black males, are the raw materials of this new factory system. You read the 14th Amendment, they'll tell you that the 14th Amendment is what made you citizens as Negroes or blacks or whatever, right? When you look in the 14th Amendment, it says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Anybody has a Black's Law Dictionary here? A Black's Law Dictionary. This is a legal dictionary. All right, because Moors, we use the black, almost like a Bible. We usually always carry out Black's Law Dictionary. I didn't bring it this time because I had too much other stuff with me. But when you look up in the Black's Law Dictionary, which is a legal dictionary, and you look up the word subject to, there's a whole phrase, there's a whole definition for the phrase subject to. It says, the first word is liable, in servitude, inferior. In fact, it's just another form of slavery. You are become what they call a corporate citizen, where they have granted you a citizenship, which means that you're almost like a corporation who exists by reason of them granting you your existence, like a corporation in this charter. Now, if the 14th Amendment, it says 1868, and you just became a citizen in 1868, that means you're not part of we the people in the preamble. And the preamble says we the people of the United States in order to form a more perfect union. So that means if you just became, that means you wasn't part of we the people who formed it in the first place. This is why knowing what your nationality is key. Because your nationality, when you look up in the Black's Law Dictionary, determines your political and legal status. So if I ask you what your nationality is, you say African American or black or this or that, that's not a nationality. There's no nationality called African or Africa is made up of many nations or many nationalities. Nigeria, Ghana. There's no nationality called African. You see what I'm saying? This is why if you don't know that, you at the mercy of these people in their court system. Another thing I want to mention, because this is leading up to what I was speaking about in terms of the final conflict and what's about to shape up. A lot of you have been hearing about these patriot societies, right? The patriots, CMOs, federal land patents, class action suits, sovereign citizenship, driving with sovereign license plates and all this stuff like this. That's not for us. I want to let you know. Because that will bring you back under the states. I've done some research with regards to these different patriotic societies. And what you will find, there's a book here called Blood in the Face. And it deals with the history of the Ku Klux Klan, Aryan nations, Nazi skinheads, and the rise of new white culture, right? Now, this is where it gets deep. How many of you heard about these different patriarch societies and CMOs and all stuff like that? How many of you heard of that? A few? All right, not too many. Well, there's a move.
The brother in the back of the dreadlock of the patriarch society giving them sovereign licenses down there in the back.
Hold on. What I found, now I have to do a couple of things. This is our Constitution that's registered with the federal government. Our Constitution, we are governed by our own, we as Moors of the Great Seal, we are governed by our own Constitution, which is registered with the federal government, Library of Congress, and Department of Justice. And this is what we are governed by. We are not governed by their Constitution. We respect theirs, but we're not governed by that. We are governed by our own Constitution. And we have our own government structure, we, the Great Seal Moors. We have our own government structure. I myself and the Wazir Talim are Minister of Education. We have Ministers of Finance, Minister of Transportation that issues our plates, and so on and so forth. We function as a government because we don't believe in going asking the white man, could we be a government? Or just talking about could we be a government. We just being a government. We just being it. We just doing it. That's all. You don't ask, because if you ask and they give you permission to do it, it could be revoked. So we don't ask them for nothing. Now, the patriarchs, initially we all began studying the patriarchs, and they brought some very important points about adhesion contracts and the different things you sign for. Like, for instance, when you sign for a driver's license, see, you have the right as a free and sovereign Moor in the inherited land of your forefathers to travel to and fro through the land freely. That's your right. But when you sign an application for a driver's license, you have now forfeited your right for a state-issued privilege that they can revoke and suspend at any time. And that also contracts you into all their system of laws dealing with the traffic codes and so on and so forth. That has no jurisdiction over us as free and sovereign Moors because we govern ourselves. Now let me read something. Legal guide, when Moors go to court, if we ever have to go to court for whatever the case may be, we have a legal guide that is read at that time, and in it states that the present Union States municipal and civil laws codes of the land, no, pardon me, it says we say magistrate and the men and women of the Bar Association, with all due respects, I can see the name of truth, law, and justice, that I myself cannot legally be tried in these Union States courtroom by said Union States law of the land. The reason being is the fact that the present Union States municipal and civil laws code of the land is an incorporated political unit of self-government established by political powers of the General Assembly of each state of the Union based on the Roman Catholic Magna Carta Code in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the year 1854. This governs only the rights and conduct of the so-called white people. The Christians and Jews of the 1863 Union States Right Republic Order of the Knights of Columbus and Ku Klux Klan oath never to allow the unconscious Moorish descendants of the living Moorish nation of this hemisphere and abroad to ever become citizens of the United States Republic. After the Civil War, the Europeans of the states, the Confederate, the former descendants of the Confederate soldiers got together and said, look what the federal government done did. Took our property from us, these slaves from us, you know what I'm saying? Beat us in the Civil War. They said, we vow amongst ourselves, regardless of what the federal government said, our Knights of Columbus Ku Klux Klan oath is to never allow the descendants of these people, of the defeated Moors, to ever become a part of our system. And we will kill any of you judges, sheriffs, or whatever who do so. This is why you see that these Ku Klux Klan and them killed their own people in many cases, if they felt that you were being too friendly or too good to our people. These are the same Europeans now who have set up these various patriarch societies. Now I did a little research, and I come to find out Now, first of all, you got to understand, because these different patriotic societies, right, they have come out with different licenses and all kinds of forms of so-called becoming a sovereign citizen under their thing. Now, what they are dealing with, I'm going to find out, is the Magna Carta. When they say common law, when they talk about common law this and common law that, they are talking about their Magna Carta Christian codes and conduct. I'm going to show you it right now. This was taken from a book. This was taken from a book called Magna Carta and the Tradition of Liberty. Because the Magna Carta is the Bill of Rights, the 10 Amendments in the Constitution. That's the Magna Carta. So when they say common law, you constantly see them referring to the 10 Amendments and so on and so forth. And here, this states the common law, and in it goes down where it mentions, it says, since Magna Carta, the common law has been so on and so forth, showing that the Magna Carta is the cornerstone. Is the cornerstone of their individual freedoms. So these European patriotic groups, when they coming out talking about Magna Carta, a common law, they're talking about their own Magna Carta traditions, common law traditions, which is dealing with was dealing with white supremacy. It only has a jurisdiction over whites, Jews, and Christians. It's a similar thing like we covered in lesson number 11, where, as let's say, the bylaws, remember, it's an incorporated political unit of self-government. The bylaws of General Motors affects the people who work for General Motors, right? It has no jurisdiction over the workers of DuPont. Well, this is what we're saying to the Europeans. You cannot judge us. See, before any court can proceed, they have to establish jurisdiction over the person and the subject matter. The subject matter as well as the person. We establish the one jurisdiction over our person because we are free and sovereign Moors guided by our zodiac constitution, which is registered with the federal government. Your system and your laws is based on your Magna Carta Code of Customs, which only governs you. It has no jurisdiction over me as a free and sovereign Moor. And if you try me, you will be violating your own common law traditions because you, according to your own sayings, it only deals with us. We can't be a part of it. Now, the CMOs, right, coming out of Wisconsin, I come to find out that there's a book that was put out called Shift of Strategy. And it deals with all the CMOs and all the stuff that the patriots are talking about. This guy, Thomas Stockheimer, there's a chapter in this book called Posse Country. And I come to find out that this guy, Thomas Stockheimer, is a member of the Posse Comitatus. The Posse Comitatus is when the people in the town would get together under the sheriff, like a mob, and round up our forefathers and string them up in a tree and hang them or burn them at the stake. This was the Posse Comitatus. And I'm going to show you something I Xerox from this book. And this is from the Posse Comitatus. And in it, check out what it says. These are the same people deal with the CMOs, Thomas Stockheimer and them. Look what it says. Brother hanging from a tree, it's time for old-fashioned American justice. These are the same patriots in the book right here. And listen, you're going to see some of these things sound familiar. They're talking about the Posse Comitatus, and it says, the Posse Comitatus Handbook. In the formation of this constitutional republic, the country has always been and remains to this day the true seat of government for the citizens who are the inhabitants thereof. And then they talk about how income tax is a violation of the Constitution, and only the states, not the federal government, has the right to declare martial law. And it says posse rhetoric is also infused with Christian identity theology, which, as noted earlier, teaches that whites are the true descendants of the lost tribes of Israel, and that Jews, blacks, and other minorities have sprung from Satan and are subhuman. This is from the Posse Comitatus Handbook, the same one. Now, Thomas Stockheimer, when you send to Wisconsin, target in Wisconsin for those CMOs, you send them to Thomas Stockheimer. He's the one who's dealing with that. Many of you don't know this. In 1974, Thomas Stockheimer, a chairman of the Wisconsin Posse, was convicted of assaulting an IRS officer. He was involved with a shootout with different federal officers and so on and so forth. These patriots, now this is the war that's up right now. As a matter of fact, these patriarchs have declared war on the federal government. But what they really declaring war on is you. Because your teachings, your science is the foundation of the federal government. In regards to the mystic Turks who are up in there now, and I'm going to explain what happened with them. The patriarchs, their main beef with the federal government comes from the Civil War period and also comes from FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and his New Deal. Who was Franklin Delano Roosevelt? He was a Mason, and he knew our science. He knew our science. This is why C.M. Bay, in the book Clock of Destiny, he says, the Europeans' progress was guided by the cycle of the planet Jupiter and the planet Mars from 1789 to 1933, a period of 144 years. Mars passes through the 12 signs of the zodiac 72 times in the course of 144 years, and Jupiter passes through the 12 signs of the zodiac 12 times in the course of 144 years. Thus, from 1789 to 1933 spelled the rise and fall of the European on a universal scale. FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was aware of his being the last president of the 144-year progressive cycle of the European universal influence when he established the order or the New Deal, and he broke the Roman order. In other words, what he's saying is that FDR realized that he was the last president of that 144-year cycle, and he broke the backs of the Union State Society. Now, the patriarchs always talking about, the Federal Reserve Bank and, how they issue Federal Reserve notes. What seemed like happened to me, based on my research and going back to this ancient plan, this Illuminati plan, dealing with our ancestors, it seems to me that what they did was put a siphon on the wealth of the American people. In other words, the so-called wealth of the American people, all the gold and stuff that was in Fort Knox, that was our wealth that they stole from us. In 1913, now the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that the white man or the double civilization was destroyed in 1914. And I always used to ask brothers and sisters, why are you saying 1914? What happened in 1914 besides World War I? You will find out that a couple of days prior to 1914, I believe it was December 26, 1913, the Federal Reserve Act was passed, as well as the 16th Amendment dealing with the income tax, which was the very thing that undermined the very foundation of this country. That money was siphoned out. America has no wealth. I'm talking about European Americans have no wealth. Our wealth was siphoned out and brought into a separate account. And that's what our reparations is going to be paid out from when we wake up and reclaim what's rightfully ours. That what happened was that in 1913, under Woodrow Wilson was the master theorist of what's known as the administrative state. In other words, the administrative state is all these different agencies you see with the federal government, the IRS, the EPA, FCC, all these different quasi-governmental agencies. This is what's known as the administrative state. What they did was take everybody out from the Union States right, the states right, and bring them under the federal jurisdiction. Now this is key. This happened in 1933 with the New Deal. This is why for the first time, you see our seal with the pyramid, that was the first time that was put on a dollar bill. The first time the American people ever seen that was when it was put on a dollar bill in 1935 during the period of the New Deal. Now what happened was this. Even though FDR was knowledgeable about our federal government and what had to come about, he had to bring about the administrative state because the people were still blind, deaf, and dumb to more science, history, and law. Therefore, he had to put together agencies that would tell you to do that which you should already know to do. If you knew more science, you would have no reason to have an agency stand over your back telling you what you have to do. Because the new world order that we as Moors are endeavoring to bring about is one where you govern yourself. That's why we say I, self, law, and master. We bring government down to the people, down to the level of the individual person, where you won't have to have a cop standing over your head with a stick or a gun telling you to do that which you already know what's right. You will know what's right. This is the type of world that we want to bring back. We back in tune with the forces of nature, in tune with our true natures, You have your own internal policemen. You don't need all these police forces and things standing over you. Why we have the present day administrative state? Because the people are still blind, deaf, and dumb. This administrative state is directly proportional to our ignorance. We have a job to do on an international level. The whole New World Order plan is all based on our science. I visit the United Nations because it's right there in New York City where I live at. I go there often. In the United Nations, one day I was on my way downtown in Manhattan going on the FDR Drive, Franklin Delano Roosevelt Drive, that's what it's called, the highway's called, and my car just cut off. Right on the highway, just cut off. I'm like, I had to pull over, I'm trying to get it started, and it wouldn't go past 42nd Street, the United Nations. I said, you know, I'm always in tune with things like that. I said, maybe something's meant for me to do something here. So I got out the car and I parked it over where the diplomats' cars and stuff was parked. I had my plates on, so I said, you know, and they thought it was a diplomatic car because they didn't put no tickets on nothing. They put tickets on every car out there except for mine. I said, let me go to the United Nations. Maybe I felt as if something was pulling me inside there. Go in there and come to find out, in the United Nations, they got what's known as the meditation room. How many of you are familiar with that? They have a meditation room inside the United Nations that's open to the general public from 11 to 2. This meditation room is designed based on our science. The whole of the matter of fact, the whole layout of the meditation room is, you see that pyramid with the capstone is laid out just like that, but the meditation room is actually the pyramid turned on its side. So when you walk into the meditation room, first the quietness just hits you. The room it goes like this because it's the pyramid turned on the side, and at the end of it there's a mural right there, and that mural symbolizes the bottom of the capstone. In that particular thing, now I knew it must have been meant for me to go in there, because when I first went in there, I said, I want to check out what this meditation room is about, right? It was locked. And I said, you know, and I was deep. It hit me. I said, this is deep. Because the meditation room is supposed to be open up for all denominations, all people, all faiths, or whatever. You can come and say your prayers, meditate, whatever. I said, this is what truly symbolizes United Nations. It's this one little room in it, this meditation room. Yet it's closed. I said, that's significant. That's showing you something that's not really on track. I went so far, I had my fez on at the time. I went to see the head of security. The head of security, now I don't know what made him do this. The head of security actually went downstairs and pulled a security man off the front post of the United Nations and told him to go inside the meditation room with me, because whenever you go to the meditation room, there has to be an armed guard there with you for some reason. He let me go inside there by myself, just me. It was just me. I went inside there. And when I went in there, I just felt this energy. And I felt almost like as if being like in the center of the world. And I felt this energy, and tears came to my eyes. Because I realized that here's the United Nations, it's saying it's supposed to be about this and that, but yet they're not really living according to it, you know? And I had such a deep experience sitting there inside that meditation room. In the middle of it is a big black meteorite stone. It almost like an altar. Just sitting in the middle. It's magnetic. And it's the same as the Kaaba in Mecca, the same type of stone. It's a very powerful. If you ever go to New York City, try and visit the meditation room. It's very powerful. When you go in there, who knows what you experience in there, depending on what your degree of spiritual evolution is. But I'm saying also say this, that the coming war that's shaping up right now, these different patriotic societies, right, have declared war on the federal government. As a matter of fact, in a recent Nexus magazine, there was a declaration that was inside of there saying that there was all, on September 19th, there was all the meet in Washington, D.C., September 8th, armed and in uniform. I'm talking about all these different patriots, Ku Klux Klan, all these different societies was going to meet in Washington, D.C., armed and in uniform to arrest senators, congressmen, judges, and so on and so forth. Now, they must have called it off because they didn't do it. They called it off. I don't know if it was because of what happened in Haiti, because Haiti took place during that weekend. And they called it off. But that's just showing you that there's about to be another civil war in this country. It's seriously shaping up. A lot of the states, the Europeans are now waking up and realize what FDR did in 1933 dealing with the New Deal. They're starting to realize what happened now and how all of them were brought under the 14th Amendment status. In 1933, in the Congress, the congressmen had said that, gentlemen, we are witnessing the greatest Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the world, that of the United States of America. The United States of America went bankrupt in 1933. That's why we have Federal Reserve notes. There was an executive order that was passed by FDR telling all Americans to turn over all their gold, coin, and bullion over to the Federal Reserve Bank. And they took all that money. That was the wealth, not the paper. That was the wealth. So in a sense, this was a bankruptcy proceeding. And the Federal Reserve is the trustee that manage the estate and pay off the creditors. That's why you have Federal Reserve notes is really the Americans' obligation to the Federal Reserve. That's why it says it don't no longer say this money is legal tender for the payment of debts. This money is legal tender for debts. You see? So we have to understand what's happening. The federal government, when we wake up and realize who we are as Moors, only we could put our federal government back on course to teach the universal science to the human family of planet Earth before they destroy themselves with their different religious isms and political isms and religious fanaticisms. Because all that does is divide man against himself. We deal with universal science, and that's what we're about, and we are the true heralds of the New World Order. But we got to wake up and realize who we are. To show you how our influence all the way up to the top echelons of the federal government, I have a picture here. Sure. And don't forget what I was saying about this posse comitatus over here and these patriot societies, because when you sign yourself up with them, many of the documents say in the part where you get it notarized, a sworn statement, it says, I am a sovereign state citizen. Once you've done that, you have brought yourself back under the Europeans. And remember, you cannot come in there as a free and sovereign person. You're really coming in as property, whether you realize it or not. And these same patriots, if they successful and overthrow the federal government, they turn around and say, what they did is null and void, and you still are slaves to this day. Because them patriots realized, they said in the Civil War, the North used the so-called black people against us, and they beat us. This time, let's see how many of them we can recruit on our side. And you got brothers all over the country sending them for these CMOs, sending them for these driver's certificate, driver's things, and you look on these things and it says that you are a sovereign state citizen coming under Magna Carta. How could you as a Moor, how could you get up in the court and say, this courtroom has no jurisdiction to me, They say, wait, sir, here's a sworn statement by you saying that you're a sovereign state citizen. So how are you going to tell us that we have no jurisdiction on when we have a sworn statement here from you saying that you're a state citizen, that you're under our jurisdiction? We as Moors, we don't mess with them patriots. We have our own government. We're not trying to follow behind them and do what they're doing. We have our own government and our own way of dealing. Yes, we are tax exempt. But we're not tax exempt as a result of the patriots and the Constitution. We have our own documents, which I have sent into when I was working for the Board of Education, and I was a tax exempt at that time. Now, I wanted to show you this picture, if I could just find it. Then it's got kind of jumbled up. Oh, here you go. How'd you find it? Thank you, brother. Here you see a picture of J. Edgar Hoover with the fez on. Now, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. What is that on his head? For all intents and purposes, J. Edgar Hoover was the federal government for I don't know how many years. It says, Al Massey, ambassador. Above it, you see the crescent moon and star with the sword above it. These are the mystic Turks, the Arabian Nights that our forefathers put in place in that federal government. You cannot be president of this country unless you are a master mason. Kennedy, who was killed, he was a Catholic, he wasn't. That's why he was killed. You, pardon me? Exactly. To be up in charge of this federal government, we put our people up in there. Indirectly, but we said, look, you are the custodians of this federal government until they wake up. And as long as you call them Negro civil rights and Africanism, they say, look, go back and study some more, come back when you're ready, because the title to this government says more on it. And we was instructed under oath and obligation to turn it over to nobody except Moors. And here you see it. And like I said, the federal government will take out anybody who talks about overthrowing, because that's why we put them there in that federal government in Washington, D.C., to protect it from being destroyed by the Dominican, the Franciscan, and Jesuit priesthood who was destroying everything we had in this hemisphere. And we said, well, they're not going to destroy this, and we put the mystic Turks in charge of that, and we put them under oath and obligation that they will have to give their lives. So we have to understand what's shaping up. Now, like I'm saying, what has recently happened, 10 states, I have it here, 10 states have passed what they call 10th Amendment resolutions. The 10th Amendment of the Constitution says, and most of these are states out there in the Midwest, going out into the West Coast. The 10th Amendment states, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively and to the people. These 10 states are passing this 10th Amendment resolution to cut off the power of the federal government. So what's happening now, the federal government is getting agitated because now these patriots have pulled the cover off of what FDR and them have did with the New Deal back in '33. And the people now they're starting to wake up their own European people to what happened. They're telling them, look, first we put the black people under 14th Amendment. Now we all under 14th Amendment citizenship. So now the federal government's like this. And they're saying, man, this is happening now. And the people getting agitated. They're starting to realize what's happening with the whole thing with the Federal Reserve and everything. There's about to be war. A couple of brothers, and I was told this by a brother named Brother Don Weed, who's a Moor, and he told me that there was some brother who was dealing with these plates and so on and so forth. And they went to a meeting, and he said that when they came out, he said all of them were arrested by federal officials. Federal, not regular policemen, federal. Another brother told me about something that was happening in New York City in LaGuardia, and he said that a patriot was giving a lecture there, and they said a SWAT team came and arrested him and seized all the papers. So as you send this stuff out to these different patriot groups and they got your name and stuff like that, you better believe you're going to be investigated by the FBI. And those mystic Turks do not play. I'm telling you, they do not play. We didn't put no puppy dogs in charge of that federal government. They do not play. They will take you out. I'm not saying it's the fear. I have no fear as a free sovereign Moor. I have no fear whatsoever of the federal government. I have no fear of the federal government because I know what I'm doing is right and exact, and they know what I'm doing is right and exact, and they cannot touch this. I have no fear. And like I said, I've been on 12050 many times, but they told me where agents have came to the table from Interpol. I had policemen tell me that the FBI was watching the table because they thought it was a hot spot. I had nothing to fear because I know what I was doing was right and exact. There was even times when I went into the woods and ran into agents in the woods. I'm talking about white men with suit and ties in the woods. I knew the mission they were sent on. One of them I ran into, me and him just got to a stand contest. It was almost like a power exchange. And I stared at him, and I began to send certain suggestions to him because I'm a certified hypnotherapist. And I know certain sciences dealing with the mind. And I started to project certain things to him. And I told him, I said, you're going to start to feel nervous, you're going to get jittery, you're going to feel nervous, you're going to get scared, you're going to want to go. He got nervous, he lit up a cigarette and walked away. We have to realize who we are and what our powers and the power that we have. We are the true federal government. We, the Moors. Don't get confused by the mystic Turks because, like I said, you got circles within circles within circles. The innermost circle of the federal government to this day is controlled by our ascended masters. That's why I don't fear. When I heard that President Clinton signed that treaty and what he signed on, and you seen him signing a lot of stuff. Now they signed the GATT treaty. All these different treaties, the patriots are beefing about because they're saying, man, look at this. They're signing these treaties. It's putting us on the same level with the so-called third world countries. It's giving them so-called third world countries the same amount of power in the United Nations as we have. That's their problem with it. But that's not our problem. The beef that the patriots have with the federal government is not our beef. The beef we have with the federal government is that they're not teaching the people, that they're not giving the people the true science. That's our beef. Our beef is different than theirs. There was one other thing I wanted to mention. And like I said, we have our own constitution, we have our own documents, and I've been stopped many times by white cops. I drove my car from here to Atlanta and back, no problems. I drove my car out here. When I left my house today, I got stopped by a cop. He was a brother though, you know. But see, sometimes you'd be surprised. Sometimes your own people will give you the hardest problems. Because you show them the document saying you're more this, that. They looking, they're saying, well, you're a nigga just like me. Why should you have some privilege that I can't have? And that's how they think sometimes. Some of them, the one occasion where I ran into the most problem was with a so-called black cop. The other times, I show Europeans my documents, they look at it, One time when I got back from Atlanta, right, a block away from my house, I was pulled over by the cops, right? So he comes over, I let him know. He says, can I see your license? I said, I let him know I'm a free and sovereign Moor. I drive according to Moor's Zodiac Constitution. Here's my Moor's driver certificate, so on and so forth. Boom, boom, boom. He's like, man, I never seen nothing like this before. He's like, he asked me, he said, can you do this? I said, yeah. I said, yeah, you can do this. And then he says, well, looks good enough for me. He says, have a nice day, sir. And walks away. The other day I'm driving, I had another Moor was in a car. In New York City, they began, I know you heard about the Giuliani administration, and it's like a police state up in New York. When I got out here, I was driving out here, I didn't see hardly no police cars. I was like, where the police cars? In New York City, you see more police almost than people now. I mean, there's cops, we call them 5-0, you see 5 over the place. You know what I'm saying? They doing police nets in New York City, where they just randomly pull cars over, just random. You, pull over. Let me see your da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So, and like I'm telling you, in New York City, I don't know about out here, but like 1 out of every 2 persons license either suspended, got crazy tickets or something. Everybody's driving illegal in New York City, you know what I'm saying? So I ran to police nets where they got like 5 tow trucks over here, and as they pulling people over, they just towing their cars away. So I roll up in there, and he says, pull over, and another boy, we just coming from the courthouse. And we pull up in there, and I show him all my documents, and I'm showing him documents, and the other cop laughed, he said, you got any more IDs? I'm showing him all the different IDs. I'm letting all my documents ready for the federal government under AA 222141, boom, boom, boom. He's like, it's good enough for me. Have a nice day. Now, the same person who's trying to by the rules, trying to be a good person, follow the rules, get their state license and insurance and all, I don't pay all that insurance, all that stuff like that. They get all this insurance, all this stuff like this. If they just missed one little thing, their cars would have been towed. The other day, I was going out to the Great Seal, and one of the students was in the car. And the cop pulled me over, and I showed him my documents. And he was saying stuff like, man, those are nice places. They're colorful, and it's crazy. He was saying weird stuff. The other brother was bugging, because he's like, he wanted to see how you deal with this in the situation. And I had actually recorded it, but the recording didn't come out. Could always try with my tape recorder in case anything was to go wrong. I have everything on tape, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, I tell my students, right, that when you receive your Moorish nationality, your constitution, you are not to be belligerent and arrogant about it. Because CMB says, and also their constitution, in article number 6, he says, the white peoples of the Union are guided by their Magna Carta, traditions and customs, which they call the common law. And the Moors are guided by the Zodiac Constitution law. Nevertheless, their customs and traditions, including themselves, must be respected by the Moors without submitting themselves to any of the Magna Carta customs. That which is termed the Christian law is a rule of action recorded on paper and supported by authority and force, what they call common law. The Zodiac law of nature is recorded in the wisdom of woman and man and supported by moral intelligence, the greatest law. So when the Europeans talk about common law, they're referring to the common law, they're looking up previous cases, stare decisis, they're looking up previous cases in the books. But when we as Moors refer to our common law, we're looking into the sun, moon, and star, and the wisdom and the science locked in woman and man. That's what we are judged by. We are going by universal law. So therefore, we can't come under theirs. As a matter of fact, they're under ours, whether they realize it or not, because that wheel spins above everybody's head, with the sun, moon, and stars, and all the planets, regardless to what your race, color, creed is. That's the universal law. So I don't care what you call yourself, or even if you don't want to recognize it, you are still governed by our Moorish Zodiac Constitution law. That's why our flag is the moon and star. And you look right up in the heavens, you see our flag. But you don't see no stars and stripes. Ours deal with universal science, which governs this planet. We are the true governors of this planet, and our flag and our signs can be seen right in the sun, moon, and stars, and right in the wisdom of woman and man. And it says by CMB that we must respect them. So when the officer come to me, pull me over, I say, how you doing, officer? What seems to be the problem? I'm talking in an intelligent and respectful way, because I'm demanding respect for mine. So therefore, I'll respect yours if you respect mine. And when you do that, oftentimes they will respect yours. But now if you can't do nothing to me, I'm a free star boy, I ain't got no choice. Now you embarrass him in front of his friend, and now you disrespected his now, so he gonna try and disrespect yours. It's gonna lead to all kinds of unnecessary complications, when if you just followed your constitution and was respectful, see, because by being respectful now you giving them a way out. You you giving him, you setting up an atmosphere where he could say, "Sir, have a nice day." And I like to end on that note because I like to treat people how I like to be treated, regardless of race, color, or creed. You see what I'm saying? So by me being respectful, it leaves an opening for him to say, "Sir, have a nice day." And that's the response I've been getting so far. Not to say I might not run into some buck wild, crazy cop or whatever. This morning I actually ran a red light, and the cop let me go. I've been stopped on about 4 or 5 occasions for running red lights. And each time when I kicked it to him in a respectful, intelligent manner, the cop said, "Sir, have a nice day. Don't let it happen again." It's a matter of how you carry yourself, because there's 2 parts of the law. There's the mundane law and there's the spiritual or divine law. And that has precedence. You got to know how to work that law. I've been in situations, and I won't get into on the film, but situations, being in the precinct, with certain things on me at the time. And they not so much even check me, approach me, did nothing to me because I was working a certain law, to the point where I was in the precinct, I had them telling me what high schools they went to, and they was telling me how the more I should go about doing this with the police and to get this done. And when I left, the cops were all waving, "Good luck. I hope everything works out." I felt like a diplomat. I'm in the precinct. This was a situation that took place on 125th Street, and it was deep, but it just goes to show you that you gotta know how to work the divine law. Being a Moor is not just having documents and IDs. You see what I'm saying? There's a higher aspect to this. And at this point, what I'll do is, take any questions. If anybody have any questions, all right, it's just about 10 o'clock. Oh, let me just mention one other thing. I brought with me out here, because we're trying to get more people into this knowledge. We're trying to spread this knowledge out. And what I'm trying to do, I'm the Minister of the Department of Education. I'm trying to help set up departments of education in all the major cities. Because we have to, CM Bay said that we won't be able to lay our claim on the federal government and our birthrights until we have raised up between 100,000 and 200,000 registered Moors. Then we can lay our claims. Well, between 100,000 and 200,000, 144,000. Which means we are the 144,000 have to square off the rest of the planet Earth with this science of the zodiac and geometry. We have to re-educate the human family of the planet Earth. And we're trying to get this information now. Now, what I did was teach a 12-lesson course, and it comes with 12 audio tapes. 12 lessons. Each lesson package has the written lesson and the audio tape, 90-minute audio tape that goes into deeper details of the lesson. I also attached various documents that I discussed here tonight, and in the tapes is actually the tape of the class, so you hear a lot of the other Moors in the class contributing and adding on all kinds of important information. Now the lessons are $10 per packet. It comes out to be $120 for the full complete course. At the completion of which, you receive a certificate from the Department of Education, and at that point, if you want to go further, at that point you can say to yourself, well look, I found out what I want to find out. I don't want to go no further. It was a good education experience. That's it. I don't want to become more. I just want to know about it. You can stop at that point. It's non-compulsory. But if you want to go further, we help you get your nationality card, your constitution. You have access to all the documents, and so on and so forth. And so if anybody said, I brought 10 of these out here with me. If anybody's interested or want to have information about how to order, I have some information here. I also publish about 90 pamphlets. Myself, I publish this out my house. About 90 pamphlets. They're all $3, $4, and $5. And they all cover different aspects of this, and they all complement and supplement the course and the course material. So if anybody's interested, you could come see me and we could work out whatever type of agreements you want to work out. Are there any questions?